Hello, good morning. First of all, I don't speak a word in Latvian, so I'll be talking in English. Labret. What did I just say?
Good morning.
Good morning. All right, that's a good start. You have heard so far the experience here in Latvia. What I wanted to offer you in the coming 10 minutes, it's a macro vision of what we are doing with the integrity pacts, because the Riga tram is only one part of a very broad and I would say gigantic project that we've been running. I work for Transparency International, the main office in Berlin, and we are the coordinators of EU-funded project. So I will skip the first two slides because you already know about the Integrity Pact. You have already heard about it. In this map, you will see the whole Integrity Pacts project. So we are talking about an initiative that was started in 2016. It's running until the end of December of 2021. We have 16, it's a pilot project. We have 16 local civil society monitors. We work in 11 countries: Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Greece, Hungary, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Portugal, Romania, and Slovenia. And we are monitoring a total of 18 very different public procurements. So the Integrity Pacts model, it's not a new one. It's been designed by my organization already 20 years ago. We have used it in around 20 countries worldwide with local adaptations. But this particular project, it's extremely important for the anti-corruption community because it's the first time that we are testing the IP methodology on such a vast scale. So we are learning a lot about it, about how the tool works and in what condition it's best. So that's why also during the selection of the 18 monitored projects, we maintained a very broad area. So here you can see some of the projects that we are monitoring. They are very diverse on purpose. So we have different sectors, for example, infrastructure, we have healthcare, restoration of cultural heritage sites, or urban development. The main aim of what we're trying to do with this project is it's a number of things. So the first one is to enhance trust of taxpayers into public contracting. At the same time, it's also to increase the transparency and accountability of the contracting authorities that are participating. At the same time, also of the private sector. We also want to bring cost savings and improve competition through better procurement. And finally, we want to focus also on citizen participation and make them part of the procurement process. Now we are reaching the last 2 years of the project, during which we want to also think about how this model can be replicated in other environments, in other situations, but also in the new multi-annual financial framework. So what I will be presenting now, it's the work that we've been currently doing at the project level, where we are looking at the first 4 years, and we gather all the experience from all the monitors, and we try to analyze what are the stronger added values that we feel that are important to share with the stakeholders. And we have some areas that I will now go through. So the first one, it's of course the increased transparency and oversight of public procurement. So we all know that procurement usually takes place behind closed doors. This is particularly true in those highly technical procurements where there is a low transparency. Let's imagine a situation like an ICT procurement. So having a third eye, a monitor, an independent monitor, brings light into quite a dark sector, we would say. And the monitor in this process is required to keep confidential data, to keep it safe, and but at the same time, they have the right to publicize what they find. This is more on a technical level, but the monitors are also in a position to bring more systemic change to the procurement, for example, to the procurement legislations at the national level. The second part, the second pillar, is also a very important one. It's about increasing the capacity of the involved actors. So we're talking about the contracting authorities, the contractors, and the civil society. So let's start with the contracting authorities. The work of the monitor enables a discussion on ethics, business, integrity, as well as the debate on good practices and targeted trainings. So, for example, the contracting authority in Calabria, the staff, after 2 years of collaborating with our monitor, they have clearly stated they have a very much clear idea on whistleblowing channels, on ethical management, and issues such as conflict of interest. But the same benefits can apply also to the private, to the bidders. For example, we have a good case in Poland where the winning company, they have established for the first time a whistleblowing channel. And so the monitors, in that case, they were also in a position to strengthen their compliance governance. A third element, it's the help of existing oversight actors. It's both a support, but also it increases their reach. Our monitors in Lithuania, they talked with their public procurement office, and they told us that they can only monitor and keep an eye on about 2 to 3% of all the procurement. And the shady business, unfortunately, happens in those where they don't have access to. We have a similar situation in Latvia, for example, where our monitors, they identified some potential breaches in the first tender, and then they collaborated to the public procurement office, where they reasoned their analysis for their concerns. Moving to the fourth key area is that we see that our work also helps us identify the existing loopholes and bottlenecks. Although there's already a big range of rules and regulations supporting anti-corruption measures, monitors are experiencing that they are also not always succeeding. So just a couple of examples, some of these bottlenecks or loopholes. So in Latvia, for example, this translated into contracting authority, their interpretation of the tender publication requirements. Or in Romania, for example, the contracting authority's selection between cost criteria and quality criteria was not that clear. Or in Greece, the decision were really stuck to the lowest cost, although this is a commonly not really a good approach. Linked to this, the monitors help raise flags on irregularity, and that's a very important part. They raise the flags before it is too late. So the model allows for some mitigation action and for some corrective measures. Finally, another important point with the red flags is that sometimes when you're an outsider, you would see a potential red flag, which without having enough information, you will not come to this conclusion. So we have a good case from Czech Republic. They were monitoring an IT service, and they have received only one bidder. So this is, in procurement world, a very big red flag. But having the monitor made a thorough analysis of the market, they have seen that there were really very, very few companies that could offer this type of service, and this made the red flag go down once again. And finally, and this is probably one part that we haven't expected, one part that we haven't expected from the pilot was the awareness raising among the affected community. So the monitors, the main point here is that the monitors work in the public interest, and his work strengthens the creation of public goods. They are driven by civil society and motivated by the public interest, therefore. The contracting authority checking public procurement against the regulation and procedures, while the independent monitoring are checking that the integrity pacts are towards the common good. We have good results from the south of Italy, for example, but also in other countries. And I just want to share with you a very powerful statement from for the local community in Calabria, where they said that for years now, the citizens have perceived public works as useless and a waste of money. And by working closely with our monitors, they see now what's happening and what the government is doing for them. And at the same time, it also helped them realize that sometimes it's not always the fault of public administration, that some of the delays are in some cases also well justified. We've learned a lot from this pilot. We see some clear benefits, but also some limitations. So among the benefits, we definitely would say that this is one of the few corruption prevention tools available, and this doesn't happen very often in anti-corruption. Not only it's a corruption prevention tool, but it's not we're not pointing fingers at mistakes and make. The whole point is not to stop the procurement, but to make it work. So this real-time audit helps really to find some ways of working through existing obstacles. The second one is a very important one, is that monitors are working in the public interest, as I stressed before. A third one is that through the IP, we believe that this tool will open a lot of doors, namely the doors of public authorities. They will open it to the citizens, to the business, and this will also create strong bridges for the future. And finally, we see from the results that this is a very valid tool for detection both for detecting mistakes or wrongdoings in the procurements and contracts, and also to create the right background for a more systemic changes. So I've only introduced the good parts, but for sure there's two sides of our coin. So we see, of course, some limitations. So the main one is that the IPs can be quite resource intensive because the expertise and funds are needed for the design of the pact itself, but especially for the independent monitoring of the procurement parties, so the public authority and the bidders. So the independent monitoring from the civil society needs to have a dedicated budget for their activities. It has to be flexible because, as we know, there's in public procurement there are often delays. And the second limitation is basically that it cannot be realistically be implemented to all IPs, to all public procurements on a national level. So I'll move to the next. I have only a couple of slides left. So what we are now trying to understand with our partners, which will be very useful for the future civil monitors, is to understand at what stages the Integrity Pact is valid and in what type of contract. So we had, I'm going to start from the procurement cycle. We were lucky because for our monitors, they had the chance to do the whole cycle. And we concluded that it is useful that the monitor is present in all of the stages. So very important since the very beginning in the needs assessment stage. If the Integrity Pact is used fully from this stage, it can increase the relevance of the public projects and investment, and also eliminate useless expenses and increase exponential the accountability of public officials. In the next stage, in the development of the tender documentation, very, very useful as well, because while reviewing the tender documentation, prior to the publication to the general public, it's a key to successful monitoring. For example, in Hungary, the estimated price, our monitors are monitoring the construction of a highway. In this particular process, they managed to lower the estimated price by 200 million florins. So that's, it's not the same as euro, but it's still a quite high amount. And this was because our monitor managed to do a parallel cost analysis. We will then move to the tender evaluation and the selection. This is where the core of the work is. Our monitor has to have full access to the available documentation, has to make comments in a very discreet way, always in written form. And then we move to the contract execution, where we cover contract implementation monitoring, which is a specific feature of IPs. And then finally, it's also about the final evaluation of the project, where we also see we can ensure that continuous accountability, effectiveness, and efficiency of the public spending. So I will now move to what situation does it work. So based on our big pool of monitored projects, we see basically three types of procurement processes where the IP can be an added value. The first one is in construction projects in any type of sector. The reason being is that based on our learnings, in construction contracts, there's a high risk of corruption, and IPs in these particular cases are effective in strengthening the integrity management of both the bidders and the contracting authorities. And this is also an area where citizen engagement has worked very well throughout the process. Second is there are large and complex service contracts. For example, IT development projects, technical assistance, and training or consultancy projects. This is very different from the first subgroup, where here they lack the visibility of the project outcomes, but at the same time, it can be very, very prone to corruption as well. There are big budgets involved, and if they are combined with lack of tangibility and visibility, this can pose serious threats. So IP practitioners agree, for example, that IPs are effective in IT development projects based on what we have learned so far. So, and the third category are supply contracts for highly sensitive and risky sectors. This was a bit of a surprise from our learnings, because they were initially considered least favorable for an IP, because they have been seen as the most cases very straightforward, with lower potential for citizen engagement. Still, we had to change our minds, because we still believe that in such procurements, the corruption risks are not lower than in others. For example, it's very common that restrictive selection criteria might apply. Another reason is that in supply contract, it is particularly important to follow the link between the needs assessment and the technical specifications. And finally, in a sector with high public interest, such as healthcare, school equipment, and social services, monitoring can be supplemented with citizen engagement. So I'm now moving towards the end of my presentation. Sorry. Sorry, yeah. We're just excited, you know. So what's the way ahead? So we have seen already some improvements on a more systemic level. In some countries, the IPs are now included in their open government partnership national plans, including in Latvia. We are seeing IPs more and more visible in national anti-corruption strategies and laws. We also see that some of the, in some of the cases, for example, in Czech Republic, after the IP with the European Commission has finished, they are already starting 2 new integrity pacts that are independent from this donor. So these are good signs, but I think we have to seize the moment right now in face of the new multi-annual financial framework to to consider the IP as a very solid anti-corruption tool. So we have a lot to offer in terms of experience. There will be also in the upcoming months, we're going to be sharing with you a lot of handbooks and very concrete tools for you to move to the next stage. We see with the member states that this can be used by managing authorities in the drafting of their operational programs. We, as a consortium, we see that there are some possible improvements, and I would just list these 3 before I give the floor to the next speaker. So we want to see a more prominent citizen engagement component. Now it's an additional, it's an add-on to the existing tool. We are learning where the citizen engagement works and what's not. I hope I'm going to have in the panel discussion to explain you a little bit more what are the enabling factors. We also see that the capacity building of public administration was very useful, was a mutual learning, and also this, we believe it should be stronger emphasized in the new IP model. And then we are already talking with like-minded organizations such as COST or the Open Contracting Partnership on how we will integrate this with other initiatives, with e-procurement, with open data, but still with the idea to keep the tool flexible and not too burdensome. Thank you.